Times are tough. It is getting so expensive to fill up your car with petrol and diesel at the moment with the crazy prices of all the different fuels right now. It literally cost me like 50, 60 quid to fill up my VW Polo 9N 1.2 litre. It's got like a 30 litre tank, it's a joke. But with that in mind, I was thinking, what cars could you still buy right now that are actually rapid, pretty nice, like good looking, all that good stuff, but also have great fuel economy. How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to talk you through 5 cars that I think are really, really nice cars for the money, properly fast, properly quick, under £20,000, so not super expensive, and all of them have really good fuel economy. If you like the video, make sure to hit the like button. If it gets 1,000 likes, do the same video again at under £10,000 instead. Subscribe as well if you're new here, and let me know in the comments if I've missed any particular cars. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So we're going to organise this list from the least to most miles per gallon. So coming in at number 5 with the worst fuel economy but still pretty good for the performance is the VW Golf R, which will manage 39 miles per gallon according to VW. It's a hugely popular car, so popular in fact it's one of the most stolen cars here in the UK, which does kind of put me off buying one. Either way, whether you've bought one or acquired it by nefarious deed, you'll get a 2 litre turbocharged inline 4 engine that makes 295 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.7 seconds, which is pretty rapid. The Mark 7 Golf R picked up where the R32s left off and took the performance to the next level in terms of pace, production and market share, with plenty of new people getting into these. They come as 3 or 5 doors, and I personally prefer the 3, considering most hot hatches are coming in with 5 doors nowadays, making the 3 doors that little bit more special but obviously less practical. It's upgraded pretty much everywhere: suspension, brakes, interior, the all-wheel drive Haldex system, and a continuation of the DSG gearbox which first appeared in the old R32. Being more modern, you also get dynamic chassis control with multiple driving modes from comfort through to race depending on what you fancy. The car was also facelifted in 2016, so if you go for anything after that you'll get some slight tweaks to the exterior, which people have named the Mark 7.5. Also worth mentioning, the R comes as an estate too, which for me has to be the winner, as they're slightly less common, but who doesn't want a fast estate that has the same engine sound and basic performance as the standard Golf R? These start at around £15,000 for higher mileage examples, while 20 grand will get you a 2016 model with around 50,000 miles on the clock. The DSG is much better than the previous generation in terms of reliability, but worth looking after. The Haldex is also worthy of note as the pump can fail, meaning you don't get that extra grip and drive on the rear. The engine isn't bad either, but worth getting the timing chain and its tensioners checked. I did not expect this car to have such decent fuel economy when driven gently, but the Mercedes A45 AMG is capable of a combined 40 miles per gallon despite being the joint quickest car on this list. It has a 2 litre twin-scroll turbocharged inline 4 that makes a massive 354 brake horsepower, making it the most powerful car on the list, which gets to 60 in 4.5 seconds. This car really set the standard for hot hatches in the mid-2010s. The A-Class was a pretty boring car through its early generations, even having a problem where it failed the Moose test for changing direction rapidly and sharply by literally falling over. But when the 3rd generation came along in 2013, Mercedes stepped up their game and entered the hot hatch market with a car that at the time had the most output of a 2 litre turbocharged inline 4 of any production car ever, before it beat itself with the A45S. For the sake of residual values, I'd recommend getting the aero pack on one of these, which gives it that rear wing and a bunch of other aero looking bits around the car, and I'd probably want the carbon around it too, which matches the really cool interior. Though having had a look around one, it does feel a little cheap and plasticky on the dashboard, but the seats are pretty cool and it does at least look very premium in there. I feel like you'd definitely be happy dailing one of these, given it also comes with the 5 doors, a reasonably sized boot, and of course that very decent fuel economy. All that in a car that managed to lap the Nürburgring faster than the Audi R8. The one thing I've seen a lot of owners complain about though is the gearbox, which can be a bit aggressive in slow moving traffic. You'll find A45 starting at around £14,000 now, which is interesting as they've continued to depreciate through the massive appreciation of used cars recently. For £20,000 you'll be looking at a 2014 model with around 70,000 miles on the clock. Some models have had problems with gearboxes, particularly those that have used the race start mode a lot. Older models have also had some turbo issues as well, but the majority of cars will have been checked for this by now. Outside of that, some have been overly thirsty on oil, but in general they've proven to be quite reliable. We've gone from the joint quickest to the slowest car on the list, as in 3rd it's the Alfa Romeo Giulietta QV, a lovely looking and sounding car but maybe could have been made a little more hot. It is still reasonably quick though, with its 1.75 litre turbocharged inline 4 making 236 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. All that still comes with great fuel economy at 41 miles per gallon. Now if you watch my videos you'll know that I'm a huge Alfa Romeo fan, and you'll also know that I'm personally after a 4C in the not too distant future. future, and this Giulietta shares an engine with that car. However, I must say, even though I try to keep my opinion out of these videos for the most part, I am not a huge fan of this car. It's a bit boring for an Alfa in my opinion, but feel free to ignore me, and I much prefer cars like the 147 GTA, but it is what it is. The QV upgrades the car to have 18-inch alloys with the Alfa red calipers, lower and more aggressive suspension, and the sports seats too, all pretty standard stuff. The launch edition for the post facelift in 2014 tried to make it a little bit more interesting, with only 700 made, each getting a numbered plaque, and available in Rosso Alfa, Rosso Competizione, and in a matte grey colour that I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce. I am trying to be as positive as I can about this car, but they've never really captured me, and reviewers have similarly gone as far to say that the car isn't fit to wear the cloverleaf badge, which is quite harsh. So let's move swiftly on to how much they cost. £12,000 minimum that I could find them listed for, and you'll get a pretty nice example starting at around the £16,000 mark with around 40,000 miles on the clock. Generally on reliability though, despite the badge, these have been pretty good, with only a few small problems noted as being in any way common. Some owners had early problems with build quality and the gearbox, but all in, not too bad. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, make sure you hit the like button. As I said, 1,000 likes to do sub 10k instead, and make sure you're subscribed and following on Instagram at CarsWithJB. Next up is a pretty rogue one, but a car that I'm actually a bit of a fan of, the Peugeot RCZ-R, which I think is a surprisingly cool car with an amazing interior for a Peugeot. I love the aggressive and angular bucket seats it gets, which contrast a much smoother and more fluid design on the exterior. Very cool stuff. But it's not all looks. It's not bad on performance either, with its 1.6 litre turbocharged inline-4 producing 266 brake horsepower, which takes from 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds, just eking itself out from the Alfa. It's also slightly more economical too, managing 44 miles per gallon. Peugeot wanted to make the RCZ more powerful and give it more overall performance, which is where the concept for the R came from. They clearly achieved this, as it was Peugeot's most powerful car ever on release, and even more interestingly, was the first Peugeot sport product since the hallowed 205 T16. Most things are uprated over the standard RCZ, with the one key benefit being those much larger brakes and the stiffer suspension. It also got a Torsen front diff, which is not too dissimilar to the one you'd get on a Mark II Focus RS, which reviewers noted was hugely positive for its handling and performance. It's pretty rare too, as only 305 were brought here to the UK, and right now there are just 265 that aren't sawned. The RCZ has also been used as a race car too, and there are actually some available to buy if you wanted to go all in on track. They are a little out of our price range though, but not actually by too much, starting at around £28,000. As I said though, the standard RCZ-R is pretty rare, but there are a few available for under £20,000, starting at £13,000, while at the top end you'll get a 2014 model around 35,000 miles on the clock. There isn't much on reliability around these cars, but there are RCZ-R owners forums in which you can get all the help you need and meet the other 300-ish people that own one of these cars. Now, every car I've spoken about so far has been a petrol one, and that's been by design, as a lot of petrol heads have been asking me for a video on fast cars with good fuel economy. But let's be real, if it's fuel economy that you want, it's time to get yourself something like the BMW 435D, which is not only the most economical car on the list, managing 50 miles per gallon, it's also the joint quickest, as its 3-litre twin-turbo diesel inline-6 engine produces 308 brake horsepower, 630 Nm of torque, and will get to 60 in 4.5 seconds. 630 Nm of torque, that is unbelievable stuff. You may have seen my review last year of the BMW M4 of the same era, which I thoroughly enjoyed driving around and pretending I owned for a couple of weeks. That said though, the 0 to 60 on the M4 is only 0.5 seconds faster than the 435D, and with a stage 1 remap you'll easily get 400 brake horsepower and 772 Nm of torque, so given it's an all-wheel drive car in X-Drive, I'd reckon it'd probably have the standard M4 in a drag race at that point. For your money you get a really decent car with a nice interior that I found isn't too much, but has everything that you need, and I think it's particularly cool in convertible spec with that hardtop convertible roof that looks like a transformer every time it goes up or down. The seats are plush and the interior is generally a lovely place to be. If I was buying a 435D, I'd look to get some of the carbon M performance parts on it too, just to give it that little bit more of an aggressive look. You'll be looking at spending anywhere from around £14,000 to get into one of these, and for 20k you'll get a 2016 model around 50,000 miles on the clock, which also means it'll be ULEZ compliant. The main problem to look out for on these is the EGR valve and cooler, which they were recalled for, as well as the steering rack, which can give some nice big clunks over sketchy terrain. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope some of these cars are exactly what you're looking for in terms of looking for reliable, economical, and just generally useful cars given the prices of fuel. Massive thanks to the patrons always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.